Chapter 4. So I sat on my bed and coughed while I listened to my mom making a frantic call to our shrink's emergency line, followed quickly by another equally hysterical call that would activate the dreaded people of Faith Prayer Tree. Within 30 minutes our house would begin to fill up with fat women and their beady-eyed pedophile husbands. They call me out to the family room. My mark would be considered a really big and embarrassing problem, so they'd probably anoint me with some crap that was sure to clog my pores and give me a cyclops-sized zip before laying their hands on me and praying. They'd ask God to stop help me stop me from being such an awful teenager and problem with my parents. Oh, and the little matter of my mark needed to be cleared up too. If only it were that simple. I'd gladly make a deal with God to be a good kid versus changing schools and species. I'd even take the geometry test tomorrow. Well, okay, maybe not the geometry test, but still, it's not like I'd asked to become a freak. This whole thing meant that I was going to have to leave. To start my life over, somewhere I'd be the new kid. Somewhere I didn't have any friends. I blinked hard, forcing myself not to cry. School was the only place I really felt at home anymore. My friends were my only family. I balled up my fists and squidged my face up to keep from crying. One step at a time. I'd just take this one step at a time. No way was I going to deal with clones of the step loser on top of everything else. And, as if the people of the faith weren't bad enough, the horrid prayer session would be followed by an equally annoying session with Dr. Asher. He'd ask me a lot of questions about how this and that made me feel. Then he'd babble on and on about teenage anger and angst being normal, but that only I could choose how it would be an impact on my life. Blah, 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 blah. And since this was an emergency, he'd probably want me to draw something that represented my inner child or whatever. I definitely had to get out of here. Good thing I've always been the bad kid, and was well prepared for a situation like this. Okay, I wasn't exactly thinking about escaping from my house so I could run off and join vampires when I put a spare key to my car into the flower pot outside my window. I was just considering that I might want to sneak out to go to Kayla's house. Or if I really wanted to be bad, I might meet Heath at the park and make out. But then Heath started drinking and I started to change into a vampire. Sometimes life doesn't make any sense. I grabbed my bag, opened the window, and with an ease that said more than my sinful nature, that my step loser's boring lectures, I popped out my window screen. I put on the sunglasses and peeked out. It was only 4:30 or so, and not dark yet, so I was really glad that our privacy fence hid me from our nosy neighbors. On this side of the house, the only other windows were to my sister's room, and she would still be at cheerleading practice. Hell must truly be freezing over because for once I was sincerely glad that my sister's world revolved around what she called the sport of cheer. I dropped my backpack out first and then slowly followed it out the window, being careful not to make even a small oof noise when I landed on the grass. I paused there for way too many minutes, burying my face in my arms to muffle my horrible cough. Then I bent over and lifted up the edge of the pot that held the lavender plant Grandma Redbird had given to me, and let my fingers find the hard metal key of where it was nestled against the smushed grass. The gate didn't even squeak when I cracked it open and inched out like the Charlie's Angels. My cute bug was sitting there where she always sat, right in front of the third door to our three-car garage. The step loser wouldn't let me park her inside because he said the lawnmower was more important. More important than a vintage VW? How? That didn't even make sense. Sheesh. I just sound like a guy. Since when did I care about the vintage of my bug? I must really be changing. I looked both ways. Nothing. I sprinted for my bug, jumped in, put it in neutral, and was truly thankful that our driveway was ridiculously steep when my wonderful car rolled smoothly and silently into the street. From there it was east to start it up and zip out the neighborhood of the big expensive houses. I didn't even glance in the rear view mirror. I didn't reach over and turn off my cell phone. I did reach over to turn off my cell phone. I didn't want anyone to talk to me. No, that wasn't exactly true. There was one person I really wanted to talk to. She was the one person in the world who I was positive wouldn't look at my mark and think I was a monster or a freak or a really awful person. Like my bug, could read my mind, it seemed to turn all by itself onto the highway that led me to the Muskogee Turnpike, and eventually to the most wonderful place in the world, my Grandma Redbird's lavender farm. Unlike the drive from school to home, the hour and a half trip to Grandma Redbird's farm seemed to take forever. By the time I pulled up the two-lane highway onto the hard-packed dirt road that led to Grandma's place, my body ached even worse than it did the time they hired the crazy new gym teacher who thought we should do insane, weird circuits while she cracked her whip at us and cackled. Okay, so maybe she didn't have a whip, but still. My muscles hurt like hell. It was almost 6 o'clock and the sun was finally setting, but my eyes were still stung. Actually, even the fading sunlight made my skin feel tingly and weird. It made me glad that it was the end of October and finally turned cool enough for me to wear my Borg Invasion 4D hoodie. Sure, it was a Star Trek The Next Generation ride in Vegas, and sadly, I am on occasion a total Star Trek nerd, which thankfully covered most of my skin. Before I got out of my bug, I dug around in the back seat until I found my old OSU trucker's hat and pulled it down on my head so that my face was out of the sun. My grandma's house sat between two lavender fields that was shaded by huge old oaks. It was built in 1942 of raw Oklahoma stone, with a comfortable porch and unusually big windows. I loved this house. Just climbing the little wooden stairs that led to the porch made me feel better. Safe. Then I saw the note taped on the outside the door. It was easy to recognize Grandma Redbird's pretty handwriting. I'm on the bluffs collecting wildflowers. I touched the soft lavender-scented paper. She always knew when I was coming for a visit. When I was a kid, I used to think it was weird, but as I got older, I appreciated the extra scent she had. All my life, I've known that, no matter what, I can count on Grandma Redbird. During those awful first months after Mom married John, I think I would have shriveled up and died if I hadn't been able to escape here every weekend to Grandma's house. For a second, I considered going inside. Grandma never locked her doors, and waiting for her. But I needed to see her, to have her hug me and tell me what I wanted Mom to say. Don't be scared. It'll be okay. We'll make it okay. So instead of going inside, I found the little deep deer path at the edge of the northernmost lavender field that would lead to the bluffs, and I followed it, letting my fingertips travel along the tops of the closest plants so that as I walked, they released their sweet, silvery scent into the air around me like they were welcoming me home. It felt like years since I'd been here, even though I knew it had only been 4 weeks. John didn't like Grandma. He said she was weird. I'd even overheard him tell Mom that Grandma was a witch and was going to hell. He's such an ass. Then, an amazing thing hit me as I came to a complete stop. My parents no longer controlled what I did. I wasn't going to live with them ever again. John couldn't tell me what to do anymore. Whew! How awesome! So awesome that it sent me into a spasm of coughing and made me wrap my arms around myself, like I was trying to hold my chest together. I needed to find Grandma Redbird, and I needed to find her now.